The envelope arrived on a gray morning, ordinary in every way except for the weight it carried. Rayan stood at the doorstep, the sealed white package trembling slightly in his hand. No sender's name. Just a return address and a number he had memorized from the website. Inside, answers. Or ruined. He waited until Hamza had been dropped at school and Aisha had left for her early staff meeting. Then he sat alone at the dining table, the envelope before him, untouched. The quiet of the house throbbed in his ears like a pulse. When he finally opened it, he didn't read it line by line. His eyes sought the conclusion, and there it was: clinical, indifferent, final, probability of paternity, 0.00%, time didn't stop. It stretched. Folded. Then shattered. Rayan's breath caught as though the air itself had turned thick. His hands went numb. His mind refused to accept what was plainly typed on the page. He read it again. Then again. Hamza. His son. The boy who clung to his leg at school gates, who drew pictures of the three of them in crayons: Papa, Mama, me. The child who inherited his stubbornness, his fondness for chocolate cereal, his fear of thunder, and yet, not his son. The betrayal was not just marital. It was existential. He waited until evening to confront her. Not out of strategy, but survival. His voice would have cracked. His hands might have betrayed his grief too soon. But by dusk, he was calm, too calm. Aisha entered, setting her bag on the couch. Rayan, whose child is he? The question landed like a gunshot in the quiet room. She froze. Then slowly turned to face him. Her mouth opened, closed. Her hands began to shake. Rayan, it was one mistake. Years ago. Before Hamza. Before we healed. Healed, he whispered. You've built a life on a secret you buried like it would never rise again. Tears fell fast now, silent at first, then sobs. I didn't know I was pregnant. I told myself it had to be yours. I wanted it to be. And when he was born, I loved him. We both did. Rayan looked away. The room felt unfamiliar, like a stranger's home. Her words were salt in wounds he hadn't known were open. I never stopped loving you, she added. Not for a second. He stood, unable to meet her eyes. You stopped telling me the truth. That's not love. That's fear in disguise. Their bedroom door closed softly behind him. Outside, Hamza's footsteps echoed up the driveway. His voice called out, Papa, I'm home. Rayan wiped his face and stepped into the hallway. His heart was broken, but his voice was steady. Coming, champ. He wasn't ready to decide anything. Not yet. But some truths, once spoken, could not be unspoken, and some love, no matter how deep, could no longer be trusted. The days that followed were heavy with silence. Rayan withdrew into himself, moving through the motions of life like a man drifting in a fog. Work became a refuge, though even the familiar glow of his computer screen offered little comfort. At night, he found himself staring at Hamza's empty bed, questioning the fragile threads that held their family together. He sought counsel, not from friends, but from a therapist recommended by a colleague. Sitting in that quiet room, he wrestled with emotions that were tangled and raw: betrayal, sorrow, anger, but also an unexpected pang of love. It's not just about trust, he said aloud once, voice barely above a whisper. It's about identity, who we are to each other, what family really means. His therapist nodded, gently guiding him toward the painful realization that love isn't always simple or fair. Sometimes, it's a choice made every day. Despite the wounds. One afternoon, Rayan visited his parents. Their warm, steady presence reminded him of roots that ran deeper than bloodlines. They spoke little of the DNA test or Aisha's betrayal. Instead, they listened as he grappled with a question he hadn't dared ask himself: Could he forgive and rebuild? Or was some fractures beyond repair? Back home, Aisha waited with quiet hope. When Rayan finally spoke, his words were measured, each syllable heavy with meaning. "I can't be your husband anymore," he said. "But I will be Hamza's father. He is my son, in every way that matters." Tears welled in her eyes, but there was relief too, a recognition that while their marriage had ended, the family they built could endure. They agreed to live separately, sharing custody and parenting with respect and care. The wounds would take time to heal, but the child's innocence was sacred, untouched by adult mistakes. One golden afternoon, Rayan took Hamza to the park. As the boy chased butterflies and laughed without worry, Rayan felt a bittersweet peace settle over him. The DNA test had shattered illusions, but it had not broken the bond between father and son. In that moment, he realized something profound. DNA tells us where we come from, but love defines where we belong. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows as father and son walked home side by side. The future was uncertain, the past painful, but hope lingered in every step. Ryan's journey had begun with betrayal, but it would not end without forgiveness. For love, after all, is the story we choose to write. Rayan believed his life was a portrait of quiet perfection. Each morning began with the warm aroma of freshly brewed coffee, the muted hum of the ceiling fan, and the gentle rustle of Aisha flipping through her lesson plans at the kitchen table. They had been married for 7 years, yet she still smiled at him like it was the first week of their honeymoon. Or so he thought. Their son, Hamza, was 5, all curiosity and chaos. He darted through the house with toy planes and stories of imaginary worlds. Rayan cherished these small domestic rituals, tying Hamza's shoes, sharing glances with Aisha in the rearview mirror during school drop-offs, and returning home to the familiar clang of pots and the scent of cardamom and rice. Their lives appeared stitched with harmony. Rayan, a senior software engineer, spent his days buried in code, finding comfort in the logic of things. Aisha, a respected schoolteacher, was equally admired by peers and parents alike. Neighbors referred to them as the perfect couple. It was a title Rayan wore with pride, but lately, perfection had developed a crack he couldn't quite name. Aisha had grown quieter. Not distant, not cold, just elsewhere. Her eyes no longer lingered on him during dinner conversations. Her phone, once casually left on the coffee table, was now always turned screen down. She laughed less and slept later, often sitting alone on the balcony long after the lights were out. Rayan noticed, of course. He was attentive, perhaps too much so. He told himself it was work stress. Teaching had become demanding. Maybe she needed space. Still, unease threaded through his otherwise structured thoughts. A whisper of doubt. But he never questioned her directly. He clung to their rituals, morning tea, weekend grocery runs, bedtime stories, as though routine could repair what words might shatter. And Aisha played along, never letting silence grow too long, never letting tension break the surface. One evening, as Hamza tugged at Rayan's sleeve asking for a bedtime story, Rayan caught a glimpse of Aisha watching them. Her eyes shimmered, not with joy, but something closer to regret. It passed quickly, hidden behind a soft smile. But it lingered in Rayan's mind like the aftertaste of a bitter truth. That night, he lay awake beside her, listening to the rhythm of her breath, wondering when the music of their marriage had fallen out of tune. That he didn't know what he was afraid of more, that something was wrong, or that nothing was. Still, he told himself, this is just a phase. She loves me. We're a family. And yet, as the lights dimmed and the silence settled, a single, unshakable thought rooted itself in his heart. Something fundamental had shifted, and whatever it was, it had already begun. The shift came quietly, like the changing of a season unnoticed until the leaves were already falling. Rayan couldn't recall when he began to question, only that one ordinary Wednesday turned into something else entirely. That he was searching for Hamza's asthma inhaler in Aisha's tote bag when his fingers brushed against a folded receipt. Curious, not suspicious, he unfolded it, expecting a bookstore bill or a parent-teacher cafe receipt. But the name at the top made his stomach dip. Marigold Suites, deluxe room, 2 nights. Dated 3 weekends ago, when Aisha had told him she was visiting her sister in Faisalabad, his first reaction wasn't rage. It was confusion, an instinctive need to rationalize. A mistake? Maybe it was for a school workshop, and she forgot to mention the venue. Maybe the hotel had a shared booking. Maybe, but Rayan had spent his life deciphering logic, and this didn't follow any pattern he trusted. Still, he didn't confront her. He couldn't. Instead, he observed. Over the following days, his world became quieter, but not emptier. He saw more. Her phone now lived in her pocket or clutched tightly in her palm. She answered calls only after stepping into another room. Her laughter was more careful, her affection more deliberate. Rayan, who once measured life in tasks and deadlines, now measured it in glances, pauses, and unanswered questions that he began replaying memories like a film on loop. Their 7th anniversary dinner, Aisha's distant smile, her sudden enthusiasm for solo retreats and self-care weekends. He remembered brushing off a friend's teasing comment at a barbecue, "Hamza doesn't look a thing like you, bro." Back then, it had been a joke. Now, it echoed like a warning. Driven by a storm of doubt and self-disgust, Rayan ordered a DNA test online, anonymously, discreetly. A swab from his cheek. A stray strand of Hamza's hair, wrapped carefully in a tissue. He hated himself for doing it. It felt like betrayal. Not of Aisha, but of the boy who ran into his arms shouting, "Papa." Every evening, every night, the test sat in the drawer, waiting for the courier pickup. Every morning, he considered canceling it, but silence had its own weight. And sometimes, the fear of truth was smaller than the cost of never knowing. One evening, Aisha kissed him on the cheek as she left to meet a friend from college. Rayan nodded, smiled, and waited until the door closed. Then, with trembling hands, he sealed the test kit as the courier van drove off into the dusk. A strange calm settled over him. There was no turning back now that he had not yet uncovered the truth, but he had finally given it permission to arrive.